Think we're live.
You think we're live? I don't think we're live yet. Now we're live. Hey, everyone. I want to thank you for joining me. My New Year's resolution was to not be a stranger to social media. And so I am attempting to put it out there here on Facebook Live today. And joining me is Phil Viardo. Phil and I are very old friends.
Yes, we are.
Phil comes from the old country, being talked about quite a bit in the news right now. As a child, he was a child prodigy piano player. Not that that matters much, but he is very excellent at a party when there's a piano there. Besides that, he's a Renaissance man. Worked in PR and now is a producer. And we're going to talk today about a show that Phil has premiering this evening on Univision that he brought to my attention. Again, Phil and I are close friends. And he's got a show tonight premiering on Univision called La Gran Sorpresa.
La Gran Sorpresa.
La Gran Sorpresa. And it's the Grand Surprise in English. A show that, well, Phil, why don't you tell us about the show and how it came
Sure.
together?
So tonight is the premiere of the second season of our series called La Gran Sorpresa, like you said. And it's a family reality show where we reunite different families who are separated by circumstances, whether it be political, immigration, or financial struggle, or many other reasons what separates Latin families in this country. And we bring them back together as a surprise on board of one of Carnival Cruise Lines and one of their families of ships. So we find deserving families, people who've survived some terrible ordeal like cancer or natural disaster, or been through some personal hardships that are down on their times and are also separated from members of the family. So what we do is we find this person, we find an insider who is one part of their family, and we say, look, we're gonna, you've lived through some ordeals. It's time for life to reward you. So we're going to give you a cruise of a lifetime. So what happens, we'll take the person, our target, on this cruise with their loved one or their husband or their daughter, whoever the insider is. And throughout the duration of the cruise, we begin surprising them with their family members they haven't seen for months, years, and even decades, and with other surprises, with people who inspired them. So by the time they get off the cruise, their life is transformed. They've been reunited with family. And in this particular episode that premieres tonight, we went overboard, as they say. while the family was enjoying the cruise of a lifetime, we went the extra mile. The story tonight's about Amneris Lopez, who was a pediatric oncology nurse in Puerto Rico, taking care of literally dying children as a profession. And in Hurricane Maria, they lost everything. Literally, the family lost everything, and they had to relocate to Brighton, Tennessee.
So they're from Puerto Rico.
They're from Puerto Rico. Yes. Right. They're from Puerto Rico. They were there for the storm, and they lost everything, and they had to relocate because, there was no electricity, there's no food, there's no water. So the friends of theirs who were really good friends and said, look, come on out here, spend time with us, we'll figure it out, just get out of there. So they got out of there, they moved to Brighton, Tennessee. They were nominated for a show. And where they moved to was basically a mobile home, and it wasn't in very good shape. Obviously, they didn't have a lot of money. They just had to get out with what's on their back. So they got into this mobile home. They bought this mobile home, but it was in terrible, terrible disarray. So once one of our producers went out there and kind of took a look at what we have to deal with, they came back and said, look, what this family needs is new flooring, new furniture, new roof. They need a new home. What can we do? So we've reached out to friends we know in the industry. And of course, I thought, Christopher Knight, because you obviously, you and I go way back and, been doing some stuff with you on the furniture side. And I said, this would be perfect for Chris. So I called you, and you were generous enough to say, yes, let's do it. And
honored, so when you told me the story, it was easy to make a decision. So,
well, I'm glad you made that decision.
Thank you for calling me.
Yeah, well, so, it turned out to be perfect. It all happened, as you remember, very last minute. We had to literally pull off a miracle renovation in 4 days. And I was there with my great support team and my great builders. And everything happened in the nick of time. And the result of what happened can be seen tonight. So we filmed everything for the show. And the show was so emotional that our production company and the network decided to make it the premiere episode of season 2. So we're very excited. It premieres tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on Univision sister network Unimas. and then again on Univision on Sunday at 5 p.m. and every week thereafter. And we have 6 more episodes coming for everybody. And yes, it is in Spanish. So for
Are there
all
English
the
subtitles?
Yes, there are English subtitles. I believe. I think it depends on your TV, but yeah, trust me. We spent a lot of time subtitling all of this, so they better be available. But it's a heartwarming story, and you know what's funny? Because I had friends and family watch it who don't speak Spanish, and you can still get what's going on.
You
get it.
I mean, it's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
So this is a departure from last season. And how many episodes did you do in the first season?
We did 6 episodes first season. We premiered in January of last year. We were on Sunday nights in prime time. We went up against the Latin version of Master Chef, which is a huge hit over there. And we wiped the floor with them. We destroyed them in the ratings for the first 3 weeks. So that was a huge coup for us.
But this was the first time that you're not doing a cruise and doing a family get-together, but doing a home improvement style wrinkle show, right?
We're still doing the cruise. So the family, this renovation happened while the family was on the cruise. Okay. So this is the first time we've done anything really this substantial outside of the cruise. Our series is we're partnered with Carnival Cruise Lines, and they've been super generous and supportive and to create and to make the show whole possible. So the majority of the action obviously takes care on the cruise because we want the world to see what cruise life is like and how amazing it is, and also how we change lives. So this is the first time we stepped on shore to really create this massive surprise because it was, they deserved it.
One of the things I want to bring up to those who might be watching is there's a unique characteristic of reality shows that changes over time just by the reality that they're on the air, and then people become fans of it. And if the show has a sort of an arc or a plot, and that plot includes surprising, it becomes less surprising in subsequent seasons. Because if they're a fan of Le Gran Sorpresa, the title alone gives it away. There's going to be some kind of surprise. And if they've watched previous seasons, the cast or those individuals that you bring in it's hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't know the show. And in other words, the surprise becomes a little bit more difficult to pull off as a true surprise, but simply it's warm nonetheless. You might as well have been just reciting my production meeting before season 2 began, because we said, okay, so first time around it was easy. We told everybody the show is called El Viaje de Mi Vida, so the voyage of your lifetime, and people obviously didn't know about it till it was already there. This year, after the show's popularity, our first question was like, okay, how do we keep surprising people? How do you top
and the top of stuff. And part of that thinking mode was how do we get more creative? So the surprises were different kind of surprises. So this is actually a perfect example where, we also reunite Amneris' family with some of her family members, but this is just another thing to make it different. And to be honest with you, I wasn't all the way shoots when they revealed the surprise. I was busy on shore dealing with things like this. But according to everybody was still surprised. Because, you may know you're getting surprised, but you have no idea what you're getting surprised with. Exactly. So there's still that Gran Sorpresa moment, and there's still tears, and it's a very emotional moment. And, we get to know these families pretty intimately over the course of production. And, they've become very close friends. They open up to us, and we learn things in the process of, what really makes them tick. And it's a very interesting process as a producer because, our research is probably one of the most extensive parts of this production. Really finding that person, really making sure, besides the fact that, because we're dealing with a lot of immigration issues and separation issues, we had to figure out how to handle it logistically, because you have people who don't have visas to go to the United States. So do we meet in other countries? What are those restrictions? I could tell you some behind the scenes stories from last season. We barely made it to a couple of places because, we're dealing with multi-country travel, coordinating teams from 3 or 4 different countries, getting these people secretly on board of ships. It was intense. So kind of went along with the theme of the struggle of what people have to do to get around that don't have American passports, and which we take for granted.
You don't cover any of that part, though, right? That's not part of the show. The backstory.
That's not part of the show.
Season 3. How do you put this together?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a show in that. Like I said, we have many, many stories, but it just kind of. But you could still kind of feel it that it's a great grand undertaking to get everybody together to make the surprises work. and it works.
In this particular show, if she was watching the first season, she kind of knew that she was going to get surprised on a cruise of some sort with some family members. Did she know anything about a house being improved?
Zero.
Zero.
And yes, and I was personally handling that part of it. So we got in touch with that friend who helped them move. And this is he's really the unsung hero of this episode. His name is Martin. And he was, I thought they were best friends with Beto, the character, the husband of Amneris, the main character. When I met them and the way they spoke and how much they've helped us in the process of getting ready for this cruise, think they're best men at each other's wedding. Come to find out, they're just acquaintances. And Martin and his family are, God-loving family outside of Memphis. And they just wanted to help their friend. And they literally put him up for 6 months. They've helped them get on their feet. They've helped them get this house. And by the time I arrived on scene, Martin and his family were literally working their day and night for free to make this renovation happen. And they wanted nothing in return. So, if they're listening, Martin, thank you so much. You guys were amazing. So it's just a spirit of trying to help some people who really deserve it. But the funny part is, I asked Martin to ask them because, when you have good neighbors and when people go away, sometimes you want people to have their key to check on the place in case there's rain. So he's like, well, why don't you leave your keys with me just in case there's something going on, if I have to check on anything. And literally I had Martin and 3 of his friends break into their house and empty out the entire house before I arrived. So the whole thing was completely, clandestine. So by the time me and my team arrived, because we have days to do this. There was only 7 days in the cruise, and we had like 4 or 5 days to get this whole thing complete. And so by the time I arrived, they cleaned out the whole house, and I asked them to take pictures to make sure, personal things, but, go back the way they were found. And we literally just, we came in, we did all the floors, and then we brought in all your beautiful furniture. And I think we were working until like 3 a.m. the night before they arrived to get it all done, and we pulled it off. So
I can't wait to watch the episode.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It definitely is. The whole entire episode is great, and this is just like the capper at the end. And thanks to you and our friends at Floor and Decor who also stepped up big time, and we made this possible.
Are you going to do this more? Are you going to do this kind of like life betterment, not just reacquaintance? Reacquainting them with family members and so forth?
I think so. I think there's the family reconnection works, whether it's a big surprise or not. It works for television, works for families. So, but I think we're definitely going to have to get much more into what the next big surprise is for next season. We're hoping it's going to be everybody tune in tonight. Set your TiVos, DVRs, because for next season we're going to have to step it up even more. But like I said, we always find the ways to surprise people. This year, we also managed to do it with destinations, where last year was most of Latin America and Caribbean. This year, we went to places like Alaska. We went to New England. We went to Europe. So there's still a lot of world to be discovered. So there's surprises there. And then we'll figure out what innate surprise we can do. And of course, anytime we got a rebuild, you're going to get a phone call.
How do you find those individuals whom you're going to work with that are going to be featured in an episode?
Well, season 1 was really, really, really hard because season 1, again, this is a surprise, and B, it was a brand new show. So we started within our family circle. Who knows somebody that's lived through an ordeal? Who knows somebody that knows somebody that's a Latin family that has a story? And we went from that outwards. I know somebody, and he knows somebody that she knows somebody, and my roommate in college, and so and so forth. So the hard part was vetting people because, television, for those people who aren't television, this. Oh, here comes your cat. Television, you don't just grab people off the street and put them on primetime TV. There's a whole vetting process that happens behind the scenes to make sure, you're not a serial killer, you don't have any sort of, criminal issues in your background. Then there was, like I said, travel issues. Do you have all the paperwork that one needs to travel internationally? Do you even have a driver's license? Because some of the people we've dealt with last year, when I was doing a lot of the production on set, they never had a passport. Some of them didn't have a license. Some of these people have never been, at 70, 80 years old, have never been in an airplane before. They're on an airplane for the first time with me and my crew. And seeing seeing an 80-year-old man looking out of the airplane window down to earth for the first time was just like, it's just like, we just take so much for granted, Yeah. That's what the show made me realize really is how much we take for granted the just basic comforts that we're used to. Like, I mean, like I said, we've dealt with all kinds of people from all kinds of places, and so finding them was hard. Finding those that not only fit the storyline but fit all the other parameters was even harder. We literally had to replace one of the cast within 3 days of a trip because of something that popped up in background check, wiping our entire slate clean, starting. I mean, it's an intense production. So this year is a little easier because now the show that premiered, the network helped promote it, said, okay, if you know somebody with a story, submit your story here. So we had a few thousand submissions to start with. But I believe we still ended up using a couple of the stories that we've met through personal relationships because they just, they checked all the marks. But yeah, it's the prep for the show is definitely one of the most intense production preps I've ever been involved in.
I know people, there is a show covering what goes into making a show because there is so much unknown, the audience not being privy to, that goes into the organization.
Yep.
Currently working on the HGTV show, Very Brady Home Renovation. It's like I've done reality shows before. I haven't done a full-blown, renovation like this. And it's again, and I've done a lot of different things. This is an entirely new, unique kind of experience when we're not just redecorating a house, but actually doing a home remodel. Of course, our HGTV celebrities and hosts who are joining us on this project are a lot more aware of that which goes into a project like this. But it's for me, it's just like been, just an incredible experience. I mean, for me, building a home or remodeling a home I've done it. It takes time, and time in television means money, and budgets aren't elastic or forever elastic. So even if they have a large budget, they still have to get it done in some kind of unrealistic time frame. And that's a part that's not really even dealt with on television because time can be compressed and fudged to the point of non-recognition when you're dealing with television. So that is a part that I don't believe anybody will really have an appreciation for on this show, on the Very Brady Home Renovation, when it finally does air, just simply because it's 4 episodes and you're not going to be able to understand really the time frame that it took. What you're going to see is essentially a house being built.
Right.
Over whatever that 4 episodes covered. And,
right.
You're building a house, you're dealing with 12, 11, 13 people that are stars of it, their schedules, bringing it all together, making sure that you can stop things like all of a sudden the Water and Power wanted to dig up the streets. It was on their calendar. It wasn't, wait, we're trying to do a show here. We need the street, we need access. All the unknowns that can completely cripple a production.
It's funny you should mention that. Because I'm actually pitching a HGTV show called Build Show, which is basically turning the cameras around and seeing everything what goes into building a build show. Because, like I said,
I think it's a perfect idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. The camera's on the cameras.
Exactly. I mean, you'll see the producer's hair turn gray live, because I think I've got 2 shades lighter since I started this show. So, and imagine doing all this. Granted, we're doing much smaller renovation for the premiere episode than you guys are doing the Brady renovation episode for HGTV, but we did ours in 4 days. So I must say we're pretty impressed with our crew on that one.
Well, I got to tell you that I was honored to be part of it. So if you ever do another home renovation and need furniture, need any home decor, please call me. I'd be happy to participate because it's always great making people smile and making them.
And you certainly did, and we thank you for it. And I will not hesitate to pick up the phone, call you again. But in the meantime, if folks want to see the results of our collaboration, tune in tonight. Like I said, whether you speak Spanish or not, check it out. It's a heartwarming show. Premieres tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern on Unimas. And then once again, rerunning every Sunday at 5 p.m. on Univision. I believe pretty much everybody gets that. So please tune in, set your DVRs, and support us so we can...
Sorpresa.
La Gran Sorpresa. The more of you watch, the more people we can help next season. So
fantastic job, Phil. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much for everything, Chris, and we'll see you soon.
All
Happy
right.
Russian New Year to everybody.